Comments can be accurate or inaccurate, sufficient or not sufficient, or present or not present, but the only source of truth is your source code. Hey everyone, welcome back to wiseman.tech. This is the second episode of Clean Code. In this video, we will be discussing how to write good comments. So let's get the video started. So let's talk about the bad comments first. Which comments are considered as bad comments? And what are some of the comments that we should avoid adding in the source code? In this book, Clean Code by Robert Martin, author states that lot of comments does not compensate for bad code. If you're writing not so good code and if you add lot of comments, that does not tell you that it's a good written code. That's number one. Second bad comment could fall in this category, which states that inaccurate comments are worse than no comments. That means if there are any comments which are misleading. For example, let's say there is a function called find if not false in window period. That means let's say there is a given integer a and b, and this function should return if this a and b are not part of this window period. Let's say a programmer writes a comment like this saying returns if numbers a comma b false in window period. It is so misleading, right? That's what author is suggesting. Inaccurate comments or misleading comments are worse than no comments. At least somebody who's reading the code can understand by going through the code that what exactly is this function doing. But if at all somebody reads your comment and if it is misleading here the programmer is basically missing the knot. It should not fall in window period, right? And also it can be slightly improved saying if given range. So this comment is absolutely fine, but what if the author has written comment like this as before? Then this is absolutely misleading. And number 3, comments should be always kept in sync. That means if you're writing, programmers are writing comments, it should be always in sync with the code. Let's take an example. Let's say this is regex matcher, which is defined here in this particular regex called regex to verify something, right? Maybe a date or something. And if author has added a comment like this, which is matching the regex initially, but what if the programmer comes back tomorrow or maybe after a month or after some time and adds more capabilities, something like this? So then your regex, then your comment also need to be modified accordingly, right? It should be modified according to the code. But what if the programmer does not update the comment and he just comes and updates his regex and commits the code? It is good to have these comments so that the programmer can understand the regex, what's happening exactly. But at the same time, it's programmer's responsibility to go and update the comment also. Point number 4, there are a set of comments which does not make any sense. So those are called noise comments. Let's say you are a programmer and you are in a very good mode today. You are in a very good mood to write the code and you end up adding loads and loads of comments which look something like this. If you see here, the code is written by so and so, this code is written to scan, okay? For each and every line, the programmer has added unnecessary comments. These comments are called the noise comments, which author wants us to avoid. So noise comments should be avoided. Now let's go and talk about some of the good practices to add a comment. There are some legal requirements from companies' security or copyright point of view, wherein if you're defining a new class, if you're writing something from scratch, if you're publishing a library, these are some of the comments that cannot be missed. So these fall under legal comments. So legal comments can be added. That is number 1. Let's go on to point number 2. So whenever a programmer wants to express his intent, let's say there are 2 choices of writing that code. But if programmer is choosing method number 1, so here is a quick example of writing the comment to show the author's intent. Let's say programmer wants to test out the race condition and he's creating these 2500 or whatever the number is, so many threads, so that he wants to test the race condition scenario in his test case. And this is absolutely fine because it clarifies us why is given 2500, why not 250, why not 100, or why not 5000. This way the author is explaining the intent, why exactly is adding this comment. And the third reason of adding comment could be clarification. Let's say we're asserting something like this, and these are two easy functions, compared to, compare not equal to, and it is very easy to read. If any programmer is reading, it is easy to understand. But what if there are some complicated assertions in the test cases that we're doing, or maybe in the functions in the source code, so that the programmer who is reading this is able to understand it properly. Although the author mentions the only source of truth is your code and not your comments. Comments can be accurate or inaccurate, sufficient or not sufficient, or present or not present, but the only source of truth is your source code. If your source code is easy to read and self-explanatory, then there is absolutely no requirement of adding comments. Let's move on to the next one. And this can be one of the useful scenarios to add a comment, that is giving warnings, right? Let's say there is a data structure which is not thread safe and it's being used in the function. It's okay to add comments like this is not thread safe, so that the programmer who is overriding this particular file or method knows for the fact that this data structure is not thread safe and it should be handled carefully. And the last scenario when programmer needs to add comment, it is good to add comment, is to do comments. So basically if the function is partially written, or if it is not handling the edge cases, so it's better to add to do comments like this, which does not handle this scenario. And you can add a comment as part of to do comment, which will be differently highlighted in IntelliJ, something like this. These are some of the best practices of adding comments, or scenarios wherein the comments are required and can be added. Hope you guys learned something out of it. If you really liked the video and watched till here, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. More such content is on the way. And now you tell me, you go back to your company's source code or your college project source code and try to see how many places this mistake have been made. And next time when you're writing source code or overriding, modifying the existing file, make sure to not repeat these mistakes and maintain good practices of adding comments. With that, we'll wrap up the video. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.